All right, everyone, we are going to start dimensioning this drawing. So you should have this all set just like this. Now, we are going to use the two types you can use for dimensioning. There's aligned and unidirectional. Aligned is your numbers or your dimensions are going to basically line up with your dimension line. So if you had a height dimension right here, you'd be reading it from the side. We're not going to do that. Changing it up from what the handout says. It says to use aligned. We're going to use unidirectional. So we're going to do the dimensions so they're all read from the bottom. Okay, so they're all read from the bottom, and then we're going to go from there. So there are rules. Your dimensions need to be placed specific spots as far as distances. So I'm going to go over that. One of the things I do, which makes it way easier to dimension, to make sure that you do not miss any dimensions, are to work in one direction at a time. So for example, find all of the height dimensions first, then find all the width dimensions, then find all the depth dimensions in whichever order you want, but work on all of those at once, and that'll help you ensure that you do not miss a dimension. You do not want to have dimensions on there more than once, so you do not want to over dimension. So as we go through this, I will point out some of those things. So first thing we're going to do is we got to choose the direction we want to go. We can start with the width dimensions. So on the front view right here, we can work on the width dimensions. Now to make this easier, what we're going to do is we're going to start by picking one side. I'm going to erase my construction lines I have here just to make it a little easier for you to view. We're going to pick a side to start with. So we're going to start here on this left edge, work our way to the right. We're going to work our way to the right, and by doing that, every time we run into a line, we need to then ask ourselves, okay, is this a line? Then we need to show where it's located, and then we can go and do that, and then continue on. So if we're starting here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by lightly drawing some lines extending out from the object, and these are called extension lines. And if you look closely, the extension line has a gap of a 1/16 inch between the extension line and the actual object. So make sure that you have a 1/16 inch gap right in there. That's the first thing. We don't know how long to make this yet. That's determined from all our dimension lines. Okay, so I drew a light line here, 1/16 inch gap. I drew a light line here with a 1/16 inch gap. Now I'm working my way across. Next line I hit is this one right here. I need to show where this is. Now I could do this right up top here, really close. The other option would be down here, except if I did that, remember this little extension line here? I would have another extension line that would be coming over top of the object from right here coming down. And going over the object, it would kind of look a little messy, a little sloppy and ugly, so we don't want to do that. So the top would be the best place to put this dimension. So I'm going to draw another extension line with a 1/16 inch gap from the object going up. I'm going to place a dimension right here. Now, where is that? Here's where some of these rules. This dimension line we're going to draw, the one nearest the object is 3/8 of an inch away from the object. 3/8, that's 6/16. So I'm going to measure 3/8 away, 6/16, and I'm going to lightly draw a line right there. Okay? So there's 3/8, and I'm going to lightly draw a line right there. There's more things we need to do to clean that up. We'll get to that in a bit. Work our way across. Now we hit the end of the object. We need to show where this is. That's one of the things you always also want to show the overall sizes on the object. You want to show the overall width, the overall depth, the overall height, because that way if you needed to actually make this object, you could look at those overall dimensions and you could say, okay, I need to make sure I start with a piece of material that's at least this big. So you always want to show those overall sizes. So for this, we could have a line extending all the way up like that. But if we did that, it would create this like almost like a box right there, and it'd be kind of ugly. If we tuck it right down here, it'll be kind of tucked underneath the object and will look all nice and neat. Okay, so we're going to do just like we did in the top. We're going to draw an extension line, which is a 16th inch gap from the object, extending down. There's a 16th inch gap right there. Just like the one on the top, this is going to be 3/8 away from the object. 3/8 away. And it's 3/8 away because it's the dimension closest to the object. I'll lightly draw this in here. So now looking at this, there's more stuff we have to do to these. However, these are going to be the locations of all of our width dimensions. There's no more width dimensions. Okay, so when we do this, these extension lines, they go 1/8 of an inch past this line right here. And this line is going to be a dimension line. So this extension line is going to go just 1/8 inch past the object. I erased a little too much right there, but I'll fix that. Make that dark now. So there's those. Like I said, just a 16 or an 1/8 inch past. There's another one right there. Another one right there. Okay. So now we can put the sizes in here. We're going to use fractions. Fractions, the fraction itself is 1/4 inch tall. If it's something like, let's say the number is 1 1/8. So the 1/8 fraction is 1/4 inch tall, but that 1 is only 1/8 inch tall. So 1/8 inch tall for the regular whole numbers, 1/4 inch tall for the fractions. So where you can get your lettering guide, I'm going to erase a little spot down here. Now this dimension down here, if you look at your drawing, is 2 inches. So that's just nice and simple. That's just going to be 1/8 inch tall. So I'm going to center the 2 little holes right there. I'm going to center them on the dimension line. I'm drawing these a little dark so you can kind of see them, but these lines should be very light. Those should be very light. And you can neatly write in the size. Now this is 2 inches. So for 2 inches, you can just write the 2. If we were doing decimals, you'd have to write in 2.000. We're doing fractions, so we do not include any decimals. We just write the 2. Okay? So there's that. Now, what we can do is we can darken that dimension line, and you make sure that you have a gap in it for the number. Then we can draw our arrows. If you remember drawing the arrows, you want them to be 1/8 inch long. You want to hug that line and slowly bring it out. Hug the line, slowly bring it out. It should look 3 times longer than it is wide. Okay, up top, that's going to be 1 inch. You can erase a little. Now, if you run out of space for the number, there's things we can do, and we'll address that a little later. But here we go. We're going to put in these construction lines. I'm going to draw in a 1. The number itself should be nice and dark. You can draw in this dimension line and add your arrows. Ooh, I kind of got a little further away from the dimension line than what I wanted, but there we go. So 1 inch, 2 inch. This should start to look a little familiar from what you're used to. So I'm going to move along here. You can pause the video if you need to. Now I'm going to work on the height dimensions. So nice and lightly, I'm going to draw an extension line coming out from the bottom of the object on both the left and right sides of the front view and the right side view. So you can see there. That's where we're going to start. We're starting at the bottom, working our way up. So working our way up, the first one we hit is this hidden line, which is this solid line right here. So we have the option. Are we going to show where this is located on the front view or on the right side view? And one of the things with this, if you remember this from working on that handout, if you can avoid dimensioning to a hidden line, you should avoid dimensioning to a hidden line. If you can dimension to the actual line, the solid object line for that, dimension to that. Try to avoid dimensioning to a hidden line. And you're not going to do both. You're not going to over dimension. You're going to dimension just one of them. You're going to pick one of them. Dimensioning to this line is the correct thing to do, not this line right here, because that's a hidden line. So we can put the dimension on the right side of this right side view or on the left side of the right side view. It's totally up to you. Either one is correct. Doesn't really matter. But only do it once, and your extension line should start a 1/16 away from that actual feature. So 1/16 from that corner right here. It's going to go right over top of that other line right there. So 1/16 away, coming right over. Now, well, I suppose you could put that one in right there if you wanted. Now, 3/8 away because it's closest to the object. And here's one of the things which I'm going to do a little different here. We don't have a lot of space there. We might have enough, but I don't think we have enough space for both the dimension line and the number. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to place the dimension line outside of that space and have it pointing inward. Like this. So it's like, hey, right here, that's the dimension. And that should be, what is it, 3/8 of an inch. So this is going to be a 1/4 inch tall. Ooh, just squeaking it in. So again, these are fractions. You always, once you start with fractions, you want to use fractions throughout the entire thing. Don't mix up fractions and decimals on a drawing. This is 3/8 tall, and you want to stack your fraction. So I'm going to write a 3, the line, and 2 circles for the 8, 3/8. So there's those arrows pointing towards that dimension, saying right there, that's the location that we're looking at. And then I can also make these extension lines dark, extending a 1/4 or an 1/8 inch, excuse me, past that dimension line. And here is the other one. So there we go, looking good. Now we need to start working our way up the object. The next one we hit is this right here. So we have the option of dimensioning it on the right side view or the front view. I'm losing my camera here. Now, one of the things with this, your option of the right side view or the front view right here. The front view, this right here shows the shape of the object a lot better than what this side does right here. This right here is just a line. It's a line sitting on the object and doesn't really tell you much about what that looks like. So therefore, because this shows the shape of the object, it's better to show it the dimension over here on this side, okay? Because this shows the shape. So knowing that, you could put the dimension on the right side of that or the left side, but the problem with the left side of this is you'd have an extension line coming over top of the object. And you want to avoid that because it just looks a little messy and a little ugly. So I'm going to sneak it in right here, 1/16 from the object, pull that extension line out, and that dimension is going to be right here. That has a height of 1, so this should be pretty easy. And remember, this dimension line is 3/8 away from the object. Oopsies. And then I can darken in my extension line. And I can put the size in there. It's going to be 1/8 inch tall, and it is a 1. It is 1 inch tall. There's the 1. So, working our way up, next one we hit is technically this hidden line here, but since that's the circle, the actual hole, we're going to skip that because we can show that later with the diameter. So working our way up, we've hit the center line right here. So that center line, we can show it on the right side view, or we can show it on the front view. Now, right side view or front view, where to show this? The right side view shows the actual circle. The front view shows hidden lines from that hole. So again, you want to avoid hidden lines. When you have a hole, you want to try and locate the hole. Locate the hole means to find where those center lines are. You want to locate the hole in the view that shows the actual circle. Try to always do that. You show it in the view that shows the actual circle, not in this view over here. So, knowing that, we're going to place the dimension either on this right side or the left side of this right side view. Either one is correct. If you put it over here on this left edge, it's 3/8 away, just like you're used to. If you put it over here, it's going to be a 1/4 inch away from that dimension line. That's one of those other rules. Your first dimension line is always 3/8 away from the object. That we've established that, right? 3/8, 3/8, 3/8, 3/8. But any other dimension lines you have stacked up behind that, they're always a 1/4 inch away from the previous. You always want that smallest dimension closest to the object, so they should be getting bigger the further out you go. So if you place it on this side, and I think I'll do that just to show you, you're going to measure from this line right here. You're going to measure a 1/4 inch away, and that's where that dimension line will be placed. So when dimensioning to a circle, the extension line should have no gaps right there. Your extension line connects directly with that center line with no gaps at all. And extend this out a little bit. So now for the dimension line, again, the one nearest the object is 3/8, but all the other ones, like this one, is a 1/4 inch away. So there's that 1/4 inch. So now I can put in that line, and this will end up being, what are we looking at? 2.5 inches. So I'm going to have to leave a decent gap in there because I have to do the 2 1/2 fraction. Okay. And these extension lines can continue outward an 1/8 inch. I can add my arrows. Again, I said 2 1/2. So we have to do a couple things here. The 2 is an 1/8 inch tall, but the 1/2 is a 1/4 inch tall. Next, I want that to be centered on there. Like this. So here's the 2, which is an 1/8 inch tall. And then the 1/2. I probably could have done a better job of centering this on the dimension line. Pull a little bit further to the right. But, so there's the 2 1/2. The 1/2 is a 1/4 inch tall. The 2 is an 1/8 inch tall, and that is a 1/4 inch away from the other dimension line. From the line to line, it's a 1/4 inch. Okay? Working our way up, we hit the top of the object. The top of the object has to be shown because we have to show the overall size. I'm going to place it over here on this front view, and the reason is the front view shows the shape of the object a lot better than what the right side view does. So because this shows the shape of the object, I'm going to place the overall height over here. Now I can put it right here, snug it up nice and tight to that. It'll look nice. Or I could put it over here and have this big box from this extension line, and I don't want to do that. That would look ugly. So I am going to bump my head on the iPad, extend out that extension line, then I'm going to measure, not a little too far there, 3/8 of an inch away. The overall height is 4, so to make sure I leave a space in there. Keep those arrows looking 3 times longer than they are wide. Darkening this extension line, 16th inch gap, 1/8 inch past the arrow. Now I can use my lettering guide to get in that 1/8 inch tall spacing. And that is 4. And I'm actually going to sneak this dimension line up a little higher. Yeah. Okay, so those are our height dimensions, are all done. Now we can work on our width dimension, or our depth dimensions, I should say. This is width. So right here's our depth dimensions. That's what we can work on next. So I'm going to pick a side, and that is this left edge of the right side view. So I'm going to put in this extension line, 16th from the object. 16th from the object. Start working my way over just like we did before. Starting here, working our way over to the right. We hit this line right here. So definitely put that down here, not up here, because you'd have a big line extending over. That would be messy. Don't want that. So I'm going to extend this down a little bit. Now for this one, I'm going to do just like what I did over here. I'm going to place this on the outside with arrows pointing in. So 3/8 away from the object is right there. Have the line right there and right there. It's 3/8 away from the object. I'm making this about 1/4 inch long, maybe a hair longer. Then I have my arrows like this, so they're pointed inward. That is a fraction. That will be 3/4. So I'm going to draw it 1/4 inch tall. Three-fourths right there. Now this extension line will not go any further than this, so I can darken that in and leave it right like that. Working our way across, we hit the center line. We need to show where the center line is. If we had it down here, it'd be extending way down across all of these lines. It's crossing fewer lines if we have it up here. So I'm going to, just like what I did here, except I'm going to have this up here, no gap, 3/8 away from the object because it's the one nearest the object. Okay? So first thing, let's put this extension line connected with that center line in nice and light. Let's measure 3/8 of an inch. I gotta measure to the side a little more. I keep measuring in the middle and putting dots there that I end up erasing later, and it's like, I need to learn. So that will be 1.5. So I need to keep that in mind when I put this in to make sure we have enough space. 1.5 is the fraction. This is 3/8 away. 3/8 away. I'm going to add those arrows in. Again, this size will be 1.5. So I'm going to have to draw a 1/8 inch tall number to start. I'm going to have a 1/4 inch tall fraction. And again, that will say 1.5. One and a half. Looks good. Working our way across. Next one we hit is this line right here. So I also mentioned this is called baseline dimensioning, where we're basing all dimensions off of one line. We're starting with that one and showing how far each one is from that one object. That's baseline dimensioning. So this line right here, we need to show how far away that is from the start. How far away is it from this over here? And that's going to be a 1/4 inch away from this line. That's going to be 2 1/4. So we make sure we leave enough space for that. So if I haven't mentioned it, your dimensions, the numbers you actually put in, should be centered on that line, both horizontally and vertically. It's not just to the point where you have to measure it, but you should try to get it centered the best you can. Get those fractions stacked. Add your arrows. Darken up these extension lines. And then we can continue on. The next line we hit is this one right here, which is the overall depth. We can show that up at the top. 1/4 inch away from that, put it there. We can show it down here, a 1/4 inch away from that. Either one is fine, perfectly acceptable. I don't mind which one you do. Extension line, 16th inch gap. Pull that up. I'm just placing it up here to balance it out a little bit. Perfectly fine if you put it on the bottom. 1/4 inch away. The overall depth is going to be 3, so there's not an actual fraction in there. So that's good. Makes it easier. Add the arrows. Lettering guide. It's just a number 3, so it's going to be 1/8 tall. Should be nice and easy. Okay, so now that we have done the height dimensions, the width dimensions, and the depth dimensions, the last thing we have left to do on here is to show the size of this hole. This is a 1-inch diameter hole. Now for this, the leader is the arrow. A couple rules with this. It needs to be touching the circle, but it also needs to be aligned with the center. So for example, try to find a good angle here. You can do this 30, 45, or 60. I'm going to use the 30-degree angle. What I first want to do, I want to align the triangle with the center of the circle. You always want to have it lined up with the center. You do not want to have it like this where it's off center. Always line it up with the center. Now remember, the leader for a circle, it's going to, your dimension you're going to put on there is going to be diameter, but the leader, and if you remember this by looking at some of your drawings, the leader should start on the outside and point inward, and it stops at the circle. And this is different than arcs with a radius. We'll get to that later. But line it up with there. Do not let it go inside the circle, but it has to touch the actual circle. And get this in here. Oop, lead broke. There. It's a 30-degree angle. Again, you can use 30, 45, or 60. However, do not let it cross other extension or dimension lines. You never want to have that leader cross an extension line. You never want to have it cross a dimension line, okay? It is nice and clean on its own. Bring it out a little bit, not too close, not too far. And again, since this is a circle with a diameter, it's going to stop right there, and that's where we're going to put the arrowhead. One other thing you want to do, you want to add a little short 1/8 inch shoulder to this, a horizontal shoulder, like that. That is a leader, because it's a circle, and again, it's going to be a diameter. It starts on the outside here and points inward. Now our dimension is going to be centered off of that 1/8 inch shoulder. And since this is a 1 inch diameter, there's no fractions, so these lines are going to be a 1/8 inch tall. You can write DIA, or you can do the diameter symbol, which is a circle with an angle through it. Diameter 1. And that is all it is. That's the entire drawing dimensioned. So this is unidirectional because we're looking at the dimensions from the bottom. We can read all the dimensions from the bottom. And it is also baseline dimensioning because it's all based off of one line. Like this one, how far away was it from this baseline? This one, how far away was it from this baseline? This one, how far away was it from this baseline? That's baseline dimensioning. So again, we did fractions. So once you start with fractions, use fractions throughout. Do not change up decimals and fractions. Extension lines, when they connect to a center line, there's no gap, there's no break there. But extension lines everywhere else comes across, and it's a 1/16 inch gap. Make sure it goes across right there. There's no gaps as it crosses that line right there. So this is what it should look like. If you have any questions, let me know. But yeah, hopefully that worked out good for you, and hopefully you understand it and it all makes sense.